Hey everybody, BlueEcko here. We have a preview copy of the Airbus H160 from Hype Performance Group. It's a brand new helicopter that's being released. The official release date is October 27th, and it'll be releasing in the civilian and luxury variants of the helicopter for the initial release. And we're going to go through the startup procedure here. So, all right, we're on the interior of the H160 here, and I'm not going to get into all the keybinds. I've got a separate video that's coming out that will explain the keybinds, how to use trim release, and how to fly helicopters like the H145 or the H160 here. As we go through this checklist, under the Documents tab, you'll find the normal procedures documents will be located in this, but I'm going to work off of an external copy while we're going through the video. And let's jump right in. Battery 1, we're going to switch that to on. Battery 2, switch that to on. Generator 1 and 2 both get switched to on. If you have DC ground power unit available, you'll see that this cyan indicator is lit up. You can click on this to turn on your DC ground power unit. That'll keep your batteries from discharging, especially because we're going to be taking our time going through here. We want to double check on the MFD that we see power up test OK. We do, so let's go back over to the overhead panel. RA1 and RA2 get switched to on. FMS1, FMS2 get switched to on. Then we're going to do our lamp test. Switching this indicator down to the bottom will illuminate all of the lamps in the helicopter. If we look around here, we can see that they're all lit up. And you should hear the audio test sound clip play as well. That gets switched back to off. Going over to the pilot's MFD page, we want to check and acknowledge the messages. We know that engine 1 and 2 are failed because they're not started. The EPU is connected and our power up test is okay. As you go through the checklist, this is the FND page. We've got FND, NAVD, VMS, DMAP, and then the miscellaneous page as well. So this, during this procedure, will generally leave on that VMS page, but when it references the FND page, that's this display that you see on the right-hand side. So we're going to check our parameters validity. We want to make sure that does our altitude look good? Is the pressure set correctly? Do we have a decision altitude or decision height set in here? Those are the different functions that we want to be looking at. The outside air temperature, does that look good? And then our fuel level, does that look good as well? Heading, we want to compare that with the standby compass. If I go back to this view, you can see our compass, our standby compass here, matches the heading that it shows on the MFD. We want to make sure that our altimeters and IESI are set. Decision height and decision altitude are set if they're required. In order to set those, if you want to set a decision altitude, you would highlight that, and then you have the ability to use this bottom right scroll wheel for fine or larger adjustments, depending on whether you're doing the inside or outside. So decision altitude doesn't need to be 600. We'll set that at 200. We'll click on that, and now we can untick decision altitude. Fuel quantity is checked. We're going to switch over and look at the lighting panel. You'll find that right back here. Emergency exit. Well, so position on anti-collision light you can set to red or white. Signs as required, and your emergency exit lights should be armed. Cockpit lighting you can set as required. You've got night and day, and then the adjustment of the level with this knob here. If you have floats installed, make sure that this switch is set to off. If you need to have your wipers turned on while you're sitting here, you can adjust the speed from here, and make sure your HTOS system is set to on. Weather radar, down here, you want to switch to standby, then test, and then it should go back to standby. Switching back to this other view, we're going to take a look on this MFD at our D map. Make sure that the map is loaded in okay. You've got some different settings. These will generally be functioning while you're flying, but you've got your anti-collision, you've got your weather, and your HTOS that you can configure from here. And then we'll switch back to VMS and take a look at the parameters, validity, and looking on the system page to make sure that we've obviously not started up, so we've got some indicators here, but we can go back to previous, and now we're back at the main page. We want to check our weight data. Weight and performance are listed here, but if we click on weight down here, this is where you can adjust the different payload, crew, and your fuel weight will be displayed there, or you can adjust as well. To switch between these, you center click on this knob. If you want to make small adjustments, it's the little knob. If you want to make larger adjustments, it's the big one. Once you're done, you can hit previous. We want to check our oil levels and temperature. So levels are good. Temperature is cold because we haven't started up yet. The next one, we're going to switch over and we're going to take a look at the tablet here. This is one of the only things that you would have to switch over to the tablet to set unless you do a keybind for this. But if you click on the clock, go to autopilot, expand this, you have the option of setting OEI to high or low. OEI high would be the default and what you would normally have that selected as. Switching back to the overhead panel now. We're going to turn our aux pump on. We're going to switch back and we're going to check cyclic is free. Pedals are free and clear. Collective is free and clear. Cyclic and pedals are centered. Collective is down. Switching back to the upper view, we can turn our aux pump off. Now we are ready to start our engine. So you can start with either engine 1 or engine 2. We're going to flip this switch and we're going to switch back over and watch the different parameters as they come up here. So engine 1, switching it to idle. Couple things we're looking for. Low hydraulic pressure. That's okay. Engine 1 starter is engaged. We should see N1 rising at 50%. The starter should disengage. We should see N2 rising. We should start to get TOT rise here as well. We'll be monitoring all of those. The starter has disengaged and now it's switched over to idle. We're looking for our hydraulic pressure to increase, our engine oil temperature on the engine that we started to rise, and we should be seeing an increase in the MGB pressure, which this will slowly come up here. And then we want to check that our NR is stabilizing at about 80. You can see that's displayed up here. Looks like we had a good start on engine 1. Let's switch back to the overhead panel. We'll start engine 2. Coming back down here, we're going to watch this. N1's rising. We're looking for 50% for engine 2 starter to disengage. We should see our TOT rise. Startup test is okay. We've got green lights on battery 1, battery 2, the emergency generator, and generator 1. You should see generator 2 switch over to green here. Startup test is okay. This switched back to idle. We've got N1 rising, and these two should be synced up. You can also, after starting engine 1, if you need to do climate control settings, you can set those as well. Right after engine start, we're going to come back over to the center console, turn off our DC GPU, and then if we have floats installed, we could turn those to auto at this point once we're started up. So without getting into the specific details about the AFCS system, we want to look at a couple things in the, you'll see on the dashboard here. I'm going to try and leave this visible for both, but SAS for 1 and 2 and AFCS show disengaged on the panel up there. If we look, I have a keybind for this, but A trim gets turned on, and then backup, AP1, AP2, these should all be switched to on. Generally, when I'm doing the startup, I have a keybind that will reset or turn those to on my collective so that I don't have to reach over and hit the button, but you can locate those buttons down on the center console here. On the overhead panel, we're going to switch over to pre-flight test. So this switch is going the other direction. And we'll come down here and take a look at the MFD to watch the pre-flight test. We're looking for pre-flight test okay there. Pre-flight test is okay. The other test that they ask you to do is to do AFCS off, fast cut, and then back on. Like I said, I have keybinds set up for that, or controller binds set up for that, but that would be the last part of that section of the pre-flight test. At this point, we are ready to taxi and to go through that portion of the startup procedure. That begins with switching the engines over to flight mode. So from there, I think we're going to consider this started up, and that will be the end of the startup. So now that we've gone through the power up procedure, the next step would be to ground taxi if necessary, or prepare for our takeoff. There's a couple different types of takeoffs. I won't get into all the specifics about those, but just to give you a little indication of a couple things, part of the checklist if you're taxiing, make sure that the nose wheel lock is turned off, and make sure that your parking brake is turned off as well. That's going to allow you to do your ground taxi and steer yourself with your braking, and it keeps that nose wheel free to be able to do those steering adjustments that you need to do. Next on the list would be our before takeoff. We're going to check our flight performance VMS, make sure that our weight is set. If we're doing, depending on the type of takeoff that we're going to do, if we're taking off from a stationary position here, we want our parking brake set as required. Our AFCS and upper modes are currently off right now. We've got our decision altitude, our decision height, and our barometric settings. If we need our transponder on, we'll check those. If we have floats installed, we will turn those to auto. And then we will double check our message list and make sure that there's nothing else waiting for us to see here. At this point, we are ready to begin our departure here from Monaco. One thing you'll notice if you are used to flying the H145 is that the rotor spin on this helicopter is opposite. So it's one thing to have to teach your brain and fix your muscle memory for, but switch over to the exterior view here and take a look as we take off and depart Monaco. Go back inside here. It's a little aggressive on our pitch, but once we are up off the ground and we've got our forward momentum, we're going to bring our landing gear up, continue on our flight. So as we continue climbing out of Monaco and continuing on our journey here, I just want to say thanks for tuning in and watching this video. Please, if you're not already, click on that subscribe button. I've got a couple other really good ideas of things that I want to cover with this. I stream on Twitch. It's twitch.tv/BlueEcko. I also stream on TikTok. So head on over to either of those platforms and drop me a follow, BlueEcko, just like the channel name here. And I will see you guys over there. Expect to see quite a bit of flying in the H160. I love the High Performance Group products, and I think that this is an excellent addition to Microsoft Flight Simulator, and I will be spending a lot of time flying around in this. One final note as we take a look at the exterior of the helicopter here before we wrap up the video. This is a preview release of the H160. I want to give a huge thanks to the High Performance Group crew for giving me access to this and allowing me the opportunity to make this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you guys have any questions, leave the comment down below and I'll do my best to answer it or find out the answer for you. We'll see you next time.